Hello, I'm Rain Chocolate, and I'm joined by Chesser, and we are going to be commenting the Shadow Cartel versus A Band Apart. So, if you notice, Shadow Cartel has brought Macaria, a Balgon, Astarte, Oneros, Navy Brutix, 2 Hounds, and 2 Crucifiers. Chesser, would you like to introduce A Band Apart team?
Sure, Band Apart is bringing a double Astarte Armageddon, Onieros, Ashimu, Zippel, double Confessor, double Crewer team, seeming to really take advantage of the very low point cost blood ships in this match with the Ashimu and double Crewer, putting and sinking a lot of points into those heavy webs and possible newts. I'm kind of confused by their setup, just because it seems a little light on DPS, but they do have a lot of control with the Armageddon long newts as well as the webs. Hopefully the Astartes can get in range and apply some of their damage, but the Shadow Cartel team seems like kind of a mixed bag. Can you break it down for me, Rain?
Yeah, and so I noticed we are actually ahead of time. So we have 3 minutes till the match starts. So we can sit here and do some analytics first. But they are an armor comp team. So they obviously brought the Hounds for the pure DPS, the Crucifiers for some control and some tracking. And then they have the Astarte for those links. And then obviously, as you mentioned, the Balgorn. Wait, did you say a Shadow Cartel or a Band Apart? Did I just describe the same team you did?
No, Shadow Cartel does have the Balgorn. They have Balgorn Macarial, which is quite interesting, thrown in an Astarte for some links with some Navy Brutix. I think it's going to be a rather interesting match. The Crucifiers here are really the point ship to look at, because for only 3 points you're looking at a Tech 1 frigate that essentially is a disruption frigate. So its its tracking disruptors or missile guidance disruptors can do a lot in stopping a lot of ranged DPS from either missiles or from hard to track guns like railguns. That being said, it looks to me like the Band Apart team, all of their Brutix are blaster fit, so I'm not sure how much TDs are really going to affect them, just because everything has to be unscripted. What do you think? Do you think the Crucifiers are worth the points in this kind of setup, or would you rather like sink it into like a T3D or maybe drop a Hound for something else? What are your thoughts?
I think the Hounds are always a good choice because it's raw DPS for very minimal points. So I think it's always good that teams have these, as long as they're able to keep these Hounds alive. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is these support ships, such as the Hounds, the Crucifier, or even T3Ds, sometimes just get blown off the field by the enemy DPS. And then they're really worthless to the team because obviously they're dead super quickly. So as long as these Hounds and these Bombers and these support teams can stay alive just a little bit, then they will definitely add some value.
Yes, and it seems that I think a Band Apart is kind of going for more of like a my style of supporting lots of Confessors, lots of Zwiffles, and Crewers to help out the bigger ships. I think the Confessors are going to have an absolute field day going to work on the Hounds and the Crucifiers, just because I don't see any way that the support wing on Shadow Cartel is going to be able to stop these T3Ds from doing their work. And once the Hounds are down from... match is beginning now. It was not 3 minutes. Once the Hounds are down on Shadow Cartel, they're going to be losing a lot of the DPS. So TD's applied very nicely already from the Crucifiers to the Confessors. I'm not sure how much of a difference that's going to make. Both teams are running right into each other. Band Apart's trying to get as close as they can. Shadow Cartel coming in. What's going on, Rain?
I was going to say, if you looked at their weapons, a Band Apart all came in at 0, except their Oneros. And their Oneros is actually being primary by Shadow Cartel.
Oh, huge mistake. Huge mistake. Shadow Cartel Balgorn just MJD'd completely off the fight. He is completely separated, 75 kilometers away from everything. That has to be exhausting being that bad with an MJD, because he's going to have to MWD for a long time to get back into the fight. That being said, though, Rain, you're right. A Band Apart's Onieros right on top of damage. Ooh, first blood already to Band Apart.
Hound, actually, yeah. So No, it was actually Shadow Cartel's Hound that went down, because obviously it wasn't able to catch any reps. And like I said, most of the time, these Bombers are usually pretty high in DPS, but pretty low on tank. They have to mitigate their damage some other way, or either these Lodges have to be really on the ball with keeping them alive.
So the Balgorn has made a heroic charge back into the fight and is now being webbed down by, I assume to be one of the Crewers. And we're going to see if he's going to be able to get back into the fight, but he lost a lot of precious time there. The Onieros is still going strong. Newts are on it but it still is holding. And 2 Hounds down now for Shadow Cartel, and they have absolutely nothing to show from Band Apart. So far, things aren't looking too great, at least on Shadow Cartel's side. They really need to start pulling back here, because now these Hounds being gone, I don't know where they're going to find the DPS that they're going to need to break this Band Apart comp.
I know, they're doing some work on this Onero, so he's at half armor. However, it does look like, I think he has like armor bots on him, armor rep bots. So he's somehow holding, he's being able to hold, so they either need to apply more pressure or just get those rep bots off of him and actually kill him to actually make any leeway here. Because 2 Bombers for an Oneros might actually be a good trade, depending how...
Oh yeah, it'd be an absolutely great trade. Band Apart's damage is just completely stopped. They're looking at going a little bit on the Macario, a little bit on the Onieros, and the Cruor. Damage is spread in 3 places, which, for those of you that are new to watching the tournament, you want to be able to focus fire as best as you can with all of your damage. And right now, that's not happening. You're seeing it spread across everywhere, which is extremely inefficient. The Onieros is completely tackled, and I would expect it to be going down more quickly. There's
And
absolutely
it's
no...
gone.
Well, yeah, Band Apart's
Apart
Onieros, yes. Shadow Cartel's Onieros should be going down. Band Apart is not being stopped by webs or anything, and they're just not bringing their blaster DPS to bear. What do you think of blaster ships in this meta currently, Rain?
I think it's kind of a high risk, high reward, because obviously if you execute blaster ships well, you can just demolish another team. But blasters are obviously close range, so if another team has more control than you, or you're not able to catch up to them enough, then obviously you just are fish out of water, and you just sit there and die.
Yeah,
And this Oneros is... Sorry, go on.
No, please, go ahead. I was just going to say, I'm just blown away that the Onieros on Shadow Cartel's team is still living. The fact that they are priming the Macarial and leaving the Onieros alive while it's hard tackled is a huge blunder on Band Apart's side. I'm not sure if it's nerves, I'm not sure if it's just miscommunication, but this is a mistake because they're burning through Macarial's EHP under Onieros reps.
Exactly, and it's weird because this Macarial actually doesn't look like he's receiving reps, but the Onieros is sometimes losing damage, sometimes getting reps, and now it is in structure, actually. So it looks like they finally just committed to this Onieros. Maybe it was like, I don't know, a bait thing, or they finally neutered it out. But they're actually trading this Astarte.
Finally down, yeah. I think the T3D wing, the Confessors and the Swivel were all over and on top of it. They were just having a difficult time applying their damage. It's just odd that the Astartes weren't there to join them. One's down already. They're going to need to be careful of Band Apart because they had a very low DPS team to begin with. And now that it's, -1 Astarte and they're just left with a Geddon, really, they need to be very careful on getting that Macarial down quickly because if they can't, they're going to be in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of weird because you mentioned how they weren't really able to apply, and I think maybe that's where these crucifiers come in. Maybe they were tracking disrupting or missile disrupting, just somehow stopping and preventing max DPS to be applied.
I think that Shadow Cartel would have had a great a much better time of things if Gremic didn't, if Aura Spectrum did literally just not MJD completely away in another direction. And I think he would have been able to peel more effectively and make this much more comfortable for Shadow Cartel. But right now, their backs are definitely against the wall. If this Macarial goes down, they're definitely going to be in some trouble just because the Balgorn is going to have little to no DPS, and the Astarte and the Navy Brutix is not going to be enough, I don't think, to bring down the very hefty support ring that a Band Apart still has going.
Yeah, and the thing now to note is that Shadow Cartel has 3 points, a Band Apart has 23. So losing this Macarial will put a Band Apart above. So they might be able to win the support war. I don't know, because I don't think these Crucifiers can kill any of their support ships. If it was flipped,
Zwiffle down is painful from Joffe. He got grappled by either the Balgorn or the Macarial, but I would assume the Macarial. Macarial finally going down here. This is going to be a close match. You're right, though, on points. That's for sure. And now the question is what is Band Apart going to do? Their target calling's been off, and it would be a huge mistake right here to go after the Astarte or the Balgorn. I think the Navy Brutix would be the best call. What do you think, Rain?
The Astarte or the Navy Brutix? Well, it looks like they're already starting on the Navy Brutix. I think Astarte, though, would at least have the links, but maybe would have a little bit more tank because of having those links. But yeah. I mean, winning the link war sometimes can make a huge difference in this.
Yeah, except a Band Apart brought no links, so that's to be said as far as winning the link war. The only reason I suggested Navy Brutix is because it's most likely going to have less EHP and probably going to have more DPS, so if you can get that down quickly, that's the way to go. I have to say though, Shadow Cartel, even though that huge blunder in the beginning where they made a mistake, they were kind of backs against the wall. They're pulling back very nicely. Their target calling has been nice. They're killing T3Ds, which is exactly what they need to do, and ignoring the Ashimun, ignoring the Cruors, which is perfect. If they can get those T3Ds off, that's a significant amount of DPS that's going to be easily removed because of their low EHP, and then they're focusing on the Astartes later. I think that's a very smart call on their part.
Yeah, and if you look now, the points are actually super, super close. A Band Apart is only 1 away, so if it killed one of these Crucifiers, I mean, I don't know how easily it would be able for these Festers to catch up and kill one, but even just killing one Crucifier and then holding out on the rest of the fight, because of the low DPS that's now left on the field, they might be able to actually win.
What's very strange to me is the lack of webs and just general tackle I'm seeing that Shadow Cartel is applying to a Band Apart. I mean, the Balgorn is doing great with the Newts on Astarte, Nos is on the Geddon, and slowly winning the war. Because while the Armageddon has a longer Newt range, the Balgorn has a much more powerful bonus. So with its Gnosses, the Balgorn can sit underneath an Armageddon, and because of its Blood Raider bonus as well, it can constantly suck cap from the Armageddon, cap itself up to run its Gnosses, and the Armageddon has nothing to answer it with. So if the Armageddon gets capped out, and the Astarte, needing cap to run its blasters, is completely neutered out by the Balgorn, then Shadow Cartel will be able to turn this around just because the DPS that's going to be left is just coming from a Confessor and an Ashimu, and that will take ages to get through a Navy Brute, or, a Navy Brutix, Astarte, and Balgorn EHP.
Well, this Navy Brutix is actually in structure, and I mean, it's going down little by little, but it is not looking good for Shadow Cartel, because if they lose this Navy Brutix, not only do they lose the DPS, but now they're losing the point war. And there's only 2 minutes left on the field, so they might be able to have the Astarte and Balgorn win in the long term, but they need to do it quickly.
Yeah, if this Navy Brutix goes down before the Astarte, I mean, it's really just a race right now. Astarte is in half armor, and I assume under the nuke pressure that it's going to be under, it is going to be unable or very hard pressed to run any of its any of its armor hardeners or reactive if it has it. And right now it's going to be just a Astarte versus Astarte, and I like the Abandoned Parts support wing much better than I do Shadow Cartel's wing. I think that just sprinkling in bombers with no defense is a dangerous play, because T3Ds are 6 points and they will absolutely shred bombers, and that's what we saw early in the match.
Yeah, another way to spend those points too, instead of just bringing bombers, is to bring almost any T1 frigate, maybe a T2 frigate, just for that what is it, E-War support. So even if like you have a shit like a Griffin or something like a Vigil with target paint, sometimes that's worth the points rather than the DPS, because that way it can be a better support fleet instead of just the raw damage.
Crucifier is going down now too, so Bandit Part just cementing a points advantage right now. And the thing is if they lose this Astarte on points, they're going to be behind. So the Astarte still needs to live. It's good that they're trying to go for the Crucifiers instead of trying to like focus the other Astarte, but I don't think even if they kill that other Crucifier, it's going to be enough to pull them back.
Exactly. So what they need to do is honestly just win. They have 40 seconds left, so if they try, I think that they might be able to win this, which is surprising because a lot of people gave Shadow Cartel credit, although I know Band Apart kind of is like the popular choice too, because it has Rich Javix and Jaffe, who are super good in the community. But at 30 seconds left, the timer just went off, but then the Astarte is a little bit in structure, but it seems to be holding.
You're absolutely right. Right now, if they want to secure an easy win, if that Confessor can get over to the Crucifier and kill it, they could at least force a draw. But if this Astarte can live for 12 seconds, Abandoned Part's going to win this on points, and I have to say, Aura is probably just kicking himself right now for taking that MJD completely in the wrong direction and absolutely throwing away the absolute power that a Balgorn has early on in a match with the long-range webs and the powerful newts and nosses. And oh my god, time is up. Wow!
Oh my god, that's so exciting!
Okay, this is the closest game we've seen so far. It's been great. Wow, Bluey Snuffstop pulling it by just the skin of his teeth. Oh, that was exciting. Rain, take us back.
Alright, we're going back to the studio, and Band Apart winners.